Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. My name is Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on episode 7 of The Walking Dead World Beyond Season 1. I believe the episode is called Truth or Dare, but before we get to that, there are a few things that I want to quickly talk about. First of all, I hope you like the new intro that I've created for this series of videos. I've actually created new intros for all my videos. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm really proud of it, but it's still not the best out of the intros. So if you're curious to see those, check out all my different videos. The second thing that I have to quickly mention before you question it, or if you have questions about it, you might notice that my background is different again, and that is because, and this is gonna require quite a lot of context, but first of all, my parents work on an animal farm and I live with my parents. And because of the job that they do, they actually have to move from farm to farm twice a year. Those two farms are in the same town, it's just on the opposite ends of it, and because there's not during certain times of the year there's no food, enough food for those animals on one farm, they have to move to the other one. And because I live with my parents, I have to move with them as well. So during the summer we are at the other farm, and during the autumn and winter and spring we are at this farm. So basically I'm back from the other farm and I'm at the other place now. And actually, if you've watched most of my videos on World Beyond, the first season, and Fear the Walking Dead 6th season, you would have noticed that there was a third background which was completely different from the last one and this one. And that is because in the last like 2 or 3 months, I guess you could say, since 20th of September, around that time, I actually had moved to a bigger town in my country because I was going to university there. I was going to be going to university there. And I'm still enrolled at university, but because of COVID-19, they basically moved almost all of the classes, and at this point pretty much all the classes, online. So there's no point for me to stay in that big city, which is like 300 kilometers away from my hometown, and I don't like how far it is. So I basically come to my hometown and I'm back with living with my parents again, and I'll probably also drop out of university because it's not really my thing. It didn't turn out to be what I thought it was going to be, so yeah, you're probably not gonna see that background again. And I guess that's pretty much it, but the last thing that I have to say is, if you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And also you might be interested into checking out my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. I actually have a zombie story called Dead Inside that I've been writing for quite a long time, and I've neglected for a long time as well. I will definitely get into trying to write it again, because I just enjoy it so much, but I just haven't had the time and I haven't felt in the right place mentally. So I would be really happy if you go and check it out. It's on Wattpad, and if you really enjoyed or enjoy my videos, you can go over to Patreon where you can pledge your support. And if you enjoy the stories, you can get your own version, which you can read offline for yourself wherever you want, because otherwise the only other available version is on Wattpad. So yeah, whichever you like. And I guess let's just get into the review from now on. For a lot of the episode, it felt pretty much standard World Beyond, and if you watched my videos on this series, you know that I don't really hate it. I enjoy it mildly, but I find just a lot of it boring. Like, there's not enough actually intriguing or interesting things happening. So for a lot of the time, I just struggle to keep paying attention to the episode. But for this one, weirdly enough, I actually paid quite a lot of attention. But again, a lot of the scenes that we had in the episode weren't particularly memorable. So I'm not gonna be recapping the way I do it with Fear the Walking Dead. It's just this series doesn't work like that for me. I don't know. But the thing that I enjoyed the most about this episode, or I was blown away the most about this episode, was what Hug did. Because in this episode we actually finally learned some backstory for her. That being that she was in the army, which I guess, I mean, we weren't hinted, that wasn't hinted at, but it's interesting to see, and it's kind of reminiscent a little bit of what we had in Fear the Walking Dead in like the first season. I definitely felt a similar vibe, and even the color scheme was kind of similar to that. So I definitely enjoyed those scenes, and I was actually spoiled on the scene in which they mentioned how the virus might have gotten um, uh, to the planet or whatever you want to say, because they actually mentioned that some are theorizing that it came from space, something which Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead, has jokingly said that that is the cause of the zombie apocalypse, at least for the comic version. And it's not really clear whether that's canon or not. I personally don't consider it canon because I don't want the virus to have a cause, because that's not the point of the story. And one of the big reasons why I enjoy The Walking Dead so much is because it's not about the virus, it's not about fixing humanity or solving the zombie virus. It's about learning to live with it or live despite it, you know? That's what I enjoy about this series, that yes, the world was wrecked, but these people keep surviving, and it's something cool about they just accept it as a thing and just try to live regardless of the fact that there are zombies around, you know? So for me, this is not something that I wanted to see in the episode, but I guess it's kind of cool. And they also kind of like just jokingly stated, so it's not necessarily how it happened in the TV show. I kind of consider it, I guess, not in wink to the comic, you know? So I'm fine with that, it doesn't bother me too much. But these scenes were actually pretty cool, in which we learned some of the backstories for her, and learning that walkers have colder body temperature to humans, which makes sense. It's kind of cool, like it kind of learning new information, even though it's something that it's kind of close to your mind. But yeah, it was actually pretty interesting. There was an interesting character, a little bit at the very least, which was featured in those flashbacks, that I kind of liked, and we didn't see him necessarily die, so maybe he's alive, I don't know. And I assume that this flashback is still what happened in the past, despite what we learn in the following episode, which I'm not going to spoil, so I still consider this flashback to have happened. So maybe that person is not necessarily dead, like the one that was friends with her, like who was close with her. Because if you watch the episode, there's that one scene which is so fucking cool, in which a general forces everybody, I think Marines they're called, to shoot innocent people, even if they are not infected, just because there's a possibility that they might be infected. And the Marines are not allowed to refuse that order, and most of them are not necessarily even willing to do so. So what Hug does, and actually I guess you could let's call her by her real name, Jennifer. What Jennifer does, because I'm pretty sure that's her name, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Jennifer does is she shuts the lights off and just shoots everybody in the head, like headshots, like 10 guys, and it's such a badass scene. Like my chin dropped to the table as I was eating while I was watching it. Like, I did not see that coming. Like, that's fucking awesome. Like, I feel like this series has definitely needed more of that kind of thing. Because it hasn't been bad, but there hasn't been moments which I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, there haven't been really badass moments, or really cool moments, or really interesting moments. There have been some kind of okay, kind of cool moments, but nothing really that makes me feel like, yeah, that's cool. And this was kind of like the first episode that did that. And after like the first 2 or 3 episodes, I kind of started to think that this series is probably gonna take its time getting to the good stuff. Cause I guess with what it's going for, I kind of expected that they're gonna probably take a while to establish the characters, and then when they do establish the characters is when we're gonna get to the good stuff, because that's basically what we had with Fear the Walking Dead. Although with Fear the Walking Dead, the episodes in which it was building up the characters and kind of establishing them was still pretty cool. But I guess I was kind of expecting the same thing. But I was also kind of expecting that they're probably gonna wait till the second season to get to the cool stuff like this. So I'm actually really glad that we had some of those cool stuff in the first season as well. I just wish maybe that they didn't wait for like the last 4 episodes to do that. Maybe have the first 5, because it's like a 10 episode season. Have the first 5 establish each of the main characters, and yes, I guess I know that there are 6 of them, you could say, but you could have each of the characters be focused on in each episode, and you don't have to necessarily focus only on one character in each episode. Make them relate to each other, you know? So yeah, I really enjoyed that moment, and if I gotta be honest, that's pretty much the most memorable thing about this episode. There are a bunch of other scenes that I really liked, like the interaction between Felix and Uncle Tony. He's actually a really fun character to watch, surprisingly fun. Like, at first I thought he was kind of corny and unrealistic, but he was actually really fun, and it gives the show a little bit more of a personality and fun to it, because I know a lot of people say that the teen characters are boring or annoying. I just find them a little bit bland, or at least with a little bit of a lack of personality. The only one that has even a mild personality is like Hope, then maybe Elton, but Silas and Iris are completely boring. So, and even Felix and Huck are not particularly interesting. Like, sure, Felix is probably more engaging to watch than Iris, Silas, and debatably Elton, but he's still not like anywhere near the level of the characters of Fear the Walking Dead or The Walking Dead. So Uncle Tony, even though at first I thought he was kind of corny, I actually really enjoyed seeing him in this episode, and he revealed some really interesting secrets about the CRM, like the fact that the CRM apparently has hidden stashes of fuel and other stuff around, which we already knew in like the previous episode. We were revealed that at the end of it. But in this episode we were shown how they kind of map their stuff. Like, they had a really cool trick where they use a map, like a normal paper map, and apparently some like plastic things, which if you point a light at them, they actually point on the exact spot of the base or the stash or whatever on a map. So that's kind of actually really cool and interesting and secretive, and I really like that. And as we're talking about the CRM, I kind of had a similar moment in this episode as I had in the last one, where we learn about another character who has seen the helicopter people. He's just a nobody who tries to kill Hope, by the way. We learned that the helicopter people apparently attacked him or something like that. Like, there was some kind of altercation between him and some of the helicopter people, so he knew that they were bad people or whatever, and he saw the insignia on the jackets of Huck and Hope, so he wanted to kill them because of the CRM. I think his brother or something died. I'm not sure about the details there. And again, as in the last episode, I don't know exactly how I feel about the fact that there are all these people who have heard or seen the helicopter people. Because, I mean, I don't know how to even explain how I feel about it. Like, I both kind of like it, but I also don't like it, because I like how the world of The Walking Dead has been established for like the first, I guess you could say 5 or 6 seasons of the main show, where we knew that there were only like groups of people or small communities of people who have been surviving, and that there hasn't been a major organization that has been like still standing in the meantime. So this also kind of plays into the whole idea of the CRM in general, where I kind of like that they are everywhere and that they are an organization that has actually managed to keep standing during the zombie apocalypse. But I just don't necessarily like the idea or the thought that while Rick and gang were almost eaten by cannibals or were dealing with Negan, there was this community or military or whatever you want to call it, with perfectly functioning government, um, medical system, and all that jazz of like all the stuff of modern society. I just don't like how I feel about that. Like, I get it that they're being able to be sustainable, like be sustained for this amount of time because they're so big, and it's impossible for like Rick and Co and Alexandria and the Kingdom and Hilltop to be doing the same thing. But I just don't know, like it gives the world a certain context that I don't necessarily like, but I also don't necessarily hate it because it's kind of cool to know that many people have seen them and or interacted with the helicopter people. So yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's also changing the world of The Walking Dead in a way that I don't necessarily feel like it's good. I mean, it ultimately depends, I guess, on how good the Rick movies are, how good the story ends up being with that, and exactly what they go and do with that. But yeah, that's how it is right now for that. And I guess we should quickly talk about the end of the episode because that was another really interesting thing that happened. Because for the last few episodes, since we've had Percy and Uncle Tony, we've seen that Silas has been jealous of Percy because he's been getting closer to Iris, who Silas seems to have a crush on or whatever. So in this episode, Uncle Tony and Percy decide that they will continue with the group even to like New York and after that and whatever happens after that, you know. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I really like the moment between Uncle Tony and Felix. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'm still gonna mention it again. It was really cool, and that's kind of like the moment that made me really like Uncle Tony. But yeah, throughout this episode and during the time in which the kids play the Truth and Dare game, which the episode is named after, Silas again kind of obviously shows that he doesn't like Percy because he's jealous. And at the end of the episode, Iris finds Uncle Tony beaten to death, his head smashed in, and Percy gone. While in the meantime, Silas's weapon, the giant wrench, is covered in blood, and he is drunk in like a toilet or something. I'm not sure whether it was a toilet. It looked like a toilet to me, so let's say it's that. And obviously everybody suspects that it's Silas for obvious reasons, but Percy is nowhere to be seen, so we don't necessarily know whether it was him or not. And I have very strong convictions about who did it, but I'm not gonna mention it in this video because it's kind of like a spoiler for the next one. So I'm just gonna share like my rating for this episode based on the details that I have so far. So at this point in the episode when I watched it, I actually really enjoyed it. This easily became the most interesting episode of the show. I would say it had the most intense moments, and it had moments that were actually interesting to watch, and I was not bored by, because as I've mentioned in my other videos on World Beyond, I just struggle to keep my eyes on like the screen. I keep looking on my second screen and just end up browsing Reddit while I'm watching the episode, and this time I didn't feel like that. Granted, it might have been because I was also eating at the time, so I couldn't just browse Reddit as well, but I genuinely enjoyed this episode. Like, it actually kept my attention, which is an accomplishment for sure. And if I gotta be honest, the next episode, even though it wasn't the same level of intrigue that I had for this one, also managed to keep my attention onto it. And as I said in the beginning, my opinions of this episode and the next one has definitely been inflated because of how disappointed I am at Fear the Walking Dead's mid-season finale, because that was pretty bad. But at the very least, like, these two episodes of World Beyond managed to keep my attention, something that Fear the Walking Dead episode 7 of season 6 didn't. So yeah, getting into the rating for this episode, I haven't really kept track on exactly how I was rating the last like 6 episodes. I know that I've rated most of them in like the 6 or 5s, but this episode was actually pretty intriguing, so I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, or I guess I should give it the lowest possible and the highest possible, because that's what I was doing. So I think I'm gonna give this episode a 6.7 at the very least and 7.3 at the highest. It was a genuinely good episode, and it's the best episode. I would say it's the objectively best episode of this show that we've had so far, for sure. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you end up enjoying my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon where you can pledge your support and help keep the channel going and help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. And I think that's pretty much it for these videos, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!